Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dispenser Show. I'm Spencer. It's been quite a long time since I did any type of live streaming um, due to a lack of a computer earlier. I just want to take the time and say hi. Today I actually got something to talk about, and it's about the reflection on my 4D roleplay practice with Rick. You know, everyone knows 28 millimeter, and yeah, I think it went pretty good for a first session. It was more a wake up call towards on what they want to do and what they want to play, kind of compared to the way I do role play with D&D, which is a major difference. Less dice rolling, and more theater of the mind, opening your mind to like the visualization, the story that they're telling. I am rusty. He had to stop me a few times. The difference between it is basically when you move your character, you move one action in 40. One action because it leads into the next part of the story that he's trying to tell. And usually it's a little harder with one-on-one compared to when you have like 3 or 4, because you'll have your one action, then it'll go to a different action, which will go to a different action from another player, and so on and so forth back into the storyline. I do need a lot more training on that. Probably a couple more sessions to get kind of back up to snuff. But a major difference is compared to D&D, where you take your action and then they tell you what you can and cannot do for that action. So, you know, I swing my spear, and then you're like, well, the DM would probably be like, okay, you gotta roll to see if it hits or misses. Kind of the same thing at 40, but it's more of a storyline base, where this one is like, well, I can't let you do that right now, and you know, this is why, because these guys are doing this, and everyone's fighting over each other for turns, and yada yada yada. Where if we find the proper group, they'll know how to work together. If you take a look at some of the videos that, you know, 28 millimeter Rick is hosting, or right now I think they're working on one right now, that Crispy is DMing right now, and he actually critiques his own work, and it's interesting to see what you reflect off your own game, your own DMing. It's like, well, you know, I said this, but looking back at it, I could have done this to get these guys to do this, or point them in that direction, and then, you know, continue on with the story that way. You know, it's actually really cool, a different experience going back and forth between D&D and their 4D roleplay. You know, there was one session here, one scenario here that Rick pulled out for me, and he's like, this thing is coming down the hallway, and when I said, it's like, well, you know, I stand up and steady myself, ready for this thing, and when I stand up, he says, there's something I ran into, and, you know, it creates the visualization on what the room is like, what the narrowity of the hallway is, what your character is planning on doing. It really is a cool thing to get into. You know, it's an eye opener on different ways on how they run their game. And it's funny because there's a lot more people wanting to do 4D roleplay than the traditional D&D, dice rolling, listening to the DM 3/4 of the time, and you spend like 20 seconds doing your move, and then it's off to someone else, and then back to the storyline for 20 minutes, and it gets boring. It loses its spark essentially from game players, because even the last session that I had with mine, I was looking around and people were talking amongst themselves, not even related to the game. Some guy showed disgust on his face for sitting there, and the DM is not picking up on the signs, that people are getting disoriented and discouraged from playing this game, because for one, he's like, oh, I already had it set up, and here he is finally setting it up, and then when you have to pause the game and go and get your whatever, like your props, I guess, for the game, to see what you're into, and then your minis to set up, and this is where you're going, and this is where you're going, this is where you stand, and it doesn't give the visualization of the actuality of what's going on in the game. The only thing that's giving it is the props. And he's like, oh, you move here, and this, that, and these guys are moving here, and these guys go invisible. What do you do? I'm like, well, I swing my spear. Roll. Instead of, these guys are coming up to you, and they're about ready to attack you, and you get yourself in a position, and it's like, well, I draw my sword, getting ready, and get in defense mode. It's like, it's a total difference. I'm not badgering the reality of D&D. I'm not badgering anything that has to do with roleplay. The difference is, I seem to enjoy more of a 4D movie style scenario setup than I would with props and minis and more dice rolls, dice rolls on dice rolls, and it just, I don't know. I'm not naming names, I'm not doing anything, but I know there's a lot of people out there that get discouraged over it, but there's other people out there that love the game because, that's the way they're trained on playing. Oh, you're trained to, sit there for 4 hours or 5 hours or whatever and run through one cave, because everyone takes so long to discuss, where you set up a gameplay in 4D, the same old traditional, session 0 comes into play. It comes into play on both sides. Like, yeah, you can do it for D&D. Yeah, you can do it for, your 4D adventures, what these guys are having. And you can do it for any other game that's, theater of the mind. But when you're running out of a book, there's really no sense of having a session 0, because people are going to do their own things, and you're going to keep to the setting of that book. Running a campaign book instead of running a story on somewhat of a timeline, but your characters are kind of cohorting with each other, trying to figure it out, and sort of veering, through the storyline, working together. I know I'm picking one side or anything, I'm not. I'm really not, because every side has its perks. the only one that's a major drag for D&D is, you know, people want to spend 5-6 hours, and you know, the other way is maybe an hour and a half, two at the most. There's your time frame. But I don't know. I really don't know what else to really, you know, compare the two into. It's my point of view. I would honestly love your feedback. I know I only have limited viewers who watch my streams. And like I said, it is nice to be back again to live stream. I didn't know really what to stream about, but now I had a topic to talk about. You know, it was sort of came to me. I did have another video in here, but I didn't want, you know, the way the video was stated, I didn't want people to just spend most of the time watching that video while I'm live streaming and, you know, see what I'm talking about than me sitting here and letting you know this is what happened. This is what, you know, he told me I needed to work on. This is what I did great on. And we'll carry on from there. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's your choice. If you want to choose D&D and play with your friends, by all means. It's not for everyone, but it is for certain people that have the time and patience to sit there and play. 40 is the ones that want to take, I guess in a way, take D&D to the next level and cut out a lot of things of being sandboxed into a storyline where you could have an open-ended adventure and see where it goes from there. But that's pretty much all I got to say today, guys. You know, my reflection on 4D role-playing is actually a lot easier to comprehend than it is to try and create a character with, you know, with its own difficulties and stuff like that, instead of creating a character, creating a secretive background, and then going in there and actually bringing that character to life. You know, with barely any rules to follow, with any bars to be held against you, any restrictions essentially, except maybe the odd dice roll to see where it goes. But I'm here to sign off. I am Spencer with the Dispenser Show. Thank you for joining me. I really do hope you guys like what I bring to the table. I really do hope that I get more followers down the road. Thank you for tuning into the Dispenser Show, and until next time, I hope to see you then. Good night, everybody.